From the killing of an innocent wife and daughter to two military guys brutally murdering a fellow recruit, the world of crime is thrilling and full of emotions, and Netflix captured some of the most bone-chilling ones with its season, The Confession Tapes. Released in 2017, this series contains real crime stories that would mess with your emotions and make some people uncomfortable. Let's deep dive into the world of thriller and mystery unlike you've ever seen before. Episode 1 and 2, True East. This is one of the biggest cases that would leave you questioning the basis of humanity. In 1994, the Rafe family was living in Bellevue, Washington, and Atif Rafe was the head of the house, taking care of his wife, Sultana, daughter Basma, and father Tariq. Until one day on July 12, 1994, the world saw one of the biggest and the most brutal murders of all time. All three family members were killed and bludgeoned to death, but the prime suspects in this case were the two surviving members of the attack, Atif and his best friend, Sebastian Burns. Before the murder, both best friends had suspicious behaviors like staying in a hotel and socializing after discovering the murder, all of which seemed quite odd to the authorities. That's where the police used the Mr. Big technique, which simply meant sending undercover cops who posed as members of the criminal organization to befriend both Atif and Sebastian. Ultimately, the best friends were given. Just a year later, the state charged Burns and Rafe with 3 counts of aggravated first-degree murder, and they arrested both of them on the same day. The men are still spending time in jail without any upcoming trial that could save their lives. Episode 3, A Public Apology. When it comes to the world of deadly cases, we have Wesley Myers on top. Whenever there's a case with extreme interrogations involved, mistakes are bound to happen, just like it happened with Wesley Myers. In 1997, Teresa Haught was murdered, and just a little after that, a nightclub murder took place where the building was burned down. Police focused on only one guy as the prime suspect, and that was Wesley Myers. They took him under interrogation for long hours, and even though he denied all the allegations, he gave 3 separate confessions, which became crucial evidence for the investigators. In the same year of the murder, Wesley Myers is arrested and gives 3 different confessions, including a verbal, a written, and a taped one. But years after Wesley was thrown in jail, one of the judges understood that his constitutional rights had been violated in the past. This happened because Wesley wasn't even given a chance to prove himself innocent and was likely under pressure during the time of interrogation. After his retrial, it was discovered that his claims in the past were false and under pressure, thanks to the police's manipulative interrogation process. This is just one of those cases where we feel bad for the victim, but feel even bad for the guy who got wrongfully accused of something he didn't do. Episode 4, Trial by Fire. The life of Karen Bowes changed when a wrongful conviction turned her life upside down. This case involves the tragic death of a 14-year-old daughter, and this daughter was Karen herself. On July 30th, 2002, a huge fire engulfed Zeeland, Michigan, and the fire was first reportedly caused by a gas can where Robin, the daughter, tragically gave out to smoke inhalation and ultimately lost her life. Then in August 2002, investigators quickly pointed out Karen for arson, and then she was interrogated and basically forced into confessing to starting the fire. After a long year of trial, Karen was finally convicted of first-degree murder and arson, primarily based on her confession. But that's where things take a turn for the worse, because Karen didn't even get a chance for parole and got sentenced to life in prison. Many people say that the confession of Karen Bowes seemed forced, and she herself claimed that it was all due to the pressure she was getting from the police. However, after years of being in prison, it was revealed by fire science developments that the original case doesn't seem like it was arson and could have likely been caused by a natural phenomenon, leaving Karen as innocent and the whole case quite weak. But even to this date, the case is quite weak, and in 2023, a new case was denied by a judge, leaving a potentially innocent Karen Bowes rotting in jail. Do you think that's fair? Let us know in the comments down below. Episode 5, Eighth and H. Inconsistencies in witness statements can happen, but this case is beyond messed up. On April 3, 1984, A woman named Catherine Fuller was assaulted and brutally murdered in a vacant lot in Washington, D.C. When authorities looked at the crime scene, it was beyond messed up because the victim was forced, robbed, and just left there to rot. However, according to the investigators, this case was more of a gang violence, linking it to the 8th and H Street crew, which was a gang that the police suspected operated in the block. But when we look at the documentary, things seem a bit too different. Originally, 17 individuals were arrested, and this was because one man was the witness. Enter Clifton Yarborough, a man who had a low IQ along with a learning disability. While modern courts would always overrule evidence like that, surprisingly enough, this Washington case was taken into consideration, even with very weak evidence in the first place. Clifton Yarborough not only had low IQ, but his stories were full of inconsistencies. And just like most cases in the confession tapes documentary, this one wasn't different. It didn't take long till the police started basing Yarborough's claims as the backbone of the case, making it one of the most baseless cases in the first place. In the end, out of those 17 individuals, 8 of them were arrested and were marked as guilty of murder. The aftermath of this case sparked a lot of controversy, particularly due to the witness and the weak statements that he's been making throughout the case. After years of battling the case, it finally reached the U.S. Supreme Court, where in the Turner v. United States case, the Supreme Court rejected the appeal, leaving the conviction standing and the falsely accused pondering what exactly happened. Episode 6, The Labor Day Murders. It was Labor Day of 2000 when a scene so eerie happened that it shook the world. John Lavelle Lynn and Robert Arthur Von Allen used to work at an auto salvage yard, and on Labor Day in 2000, both men were found murdered in the yard mysteriously. The police suddenly started pointing at hundreds of potential victims, but one guy stood out the most from the bunch, and it was Buddy Woodall, the nephew of one of the victims, who confessed to murdering the 2 men by assisting David Wimberly, who did not claim that he actually did the killings. Big Woodall and Wimberly had different trials, and Wimberly's trial was dismissed due to the lack of evidence, because Woodall's confession was not credible in the first place. This case seemed like a mess because to the general public, not much was making any sense. Finally, in 2014, the Supreme Court of Georgia upheld Woodall's conviction despite the problems with trial and conduct of the police. In the end, Buddy Woodall also maintained his innocence. This is one of the prime examples of how people can lose years of their lives fighting cases that don't turn out to be true. While they ultimately come out as innocent, the years wasted in their lives would never return. Episode 7, Downriver. It was a dark day for Lawrence DeLille's family when one day he was driving his Ford LTD station wagon, but suddenly it went down to the edge of the pier in Downriver, Michigan, with himself, his wife, and all 4 of his children inside. As the car hits the water, the windshield shatters, which allows the couple to get free, but ultimately all 4 children lost their lives, no matter the progress the rescue workers made to save them. When he was interrogated, DeLille said that his leg got cramped, but later he admitted to the fact that he might be under hypnosis, which was a confession that was inadmissible by the court. Still, it was available to the media, which escalated the situation, and one thing led to another. DeLille was ultimately found guilty of the attempted murder of his wife and the full murder of his 4 children, which was allocated against him on August 1st, 1990. This case was also linked with a previous one where DeLille's father drove his 1977 Ford station wagon in 1988 and shot himself in the head with a pistol. In the heat of the moment, and after a lot of investigation, one of the Sergeant Gillespie told the press that DeLille confessed to intentionally pressing down the accelerator so he could get rid of his murders. Sometime later, he told me that the sergeant was manipulating him. Even after so many trials, DeLille is still incarcerated at Lakeland Correctional Facility in Michigan, where he could never get out of. This is also one of the cases where evidence was poor and the confession was done purely under pressure. Final verdict. Now we ask you the final question. Do you think the way we interrogate needs to change, or that huge pressure is required to understand the reality behind each case? Let us know in the comments down below and subscribe to our channel for more murder-related videos.